What up, guys? My name is Cheyenne Abel. I am the creative director and producer at Cheyes Visuals, and this is the Shawk23 podcast by creatives for creatives.
Hi, I'm Shawk23, and this is the Shawk23 podcast. This is the podcast by creatives for creatives, where I chat with other people in the creative and media industry, and we share our knowledge and our experience. My guest for today is none other than a videographer and photographer. He's also the creative director and producer of Cheyes Visuals. It's none other than Mr. Cheyenne Abel himself. Welcome to the podcast.
What up, Chan? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. It's good. Today we're just chatting with my crew, basically, because Cheyenne's one of the people who's helped me to produce and to record the video version of our podcast. And it's good to have you on the show and to tell your interesting, I hope, story.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming. I was waiting. I wonder when Chan's going to get us there.
True, you know.
But we're here. We made it.
True.
Thank you for
I just had to
me.
Run out of guests first.
Yeah, run out of all the important people, and we come back to the crew ourselves.
I'm saving the best for, obviously, last. It's not going to be the last episode, though. Anyways.
It's not going to be the last, guys. We have plenty more episodes coming.
Definitely. But before we get into that, here's a word from our sponsors. The Shawk23 podcast is proudly sponsored by Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. Smart Hills Corporate Solutions provide IT solutions for corporate businesses and creatives like myself. They provide a wide range of products and services and are certified resellers of software such as Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Cloud, Wondershare, and more. To find out more, please visit their website on www.smarthills.com.pg. Now back to the show. And we're back. So, Mr. Cheyenne Abel, please tell me more about yourself. What do you do for a living?
Oh, well, okay. So for anyone who doesn't know what I do, my name is Cheyenne Abel, but I usually just go by Shy. It's easier for people to pronounce and spell too.
I usually call you Che.
Yeah, well, that's the other common misconception about my name. But it's fine. I go by either. It's whatever people find easier to say. So I basically do everything under the sun with regards to photography and videography. That's a space that I really like to focus on. I've seen a lot of, influencers or mentors, I don't know what you'd call them, when they say that you spread yourself too thin, you can't focus and perfect one particular skill set. So I know for myself, I really wanted to focus on photography. And that sort of led into a natural progression into doing video like a year or two later. And that came about because I met a lot of other talented people who were doing the same thing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is another, I guess, branch of the same tree that I could crawl out onto.
Yeah, I think that's a good, a point that you make, because I think that when everybody talks about niching and everybody feels so pressured to find that one perfect thing and then be good at it and just go for it, which is a good strategy if you have clarity. But if you're starting off and you don't know, it's good to try a couple of different things to have a feel of it. It's better that you go in with that expectation and then figuring out it's not for you, and then, filtering it, and then instead of going blindly into something and then investing so much time and effort into that you realize that it doesn't work out and you have to start all over again.
That's, I guess that's a great segue into me talking about what I did before this.
Mate, everything just flows on this podcast. But definitely. So basically the story is that you were in uni and then you dropped out and then you pursued this business. What did you study and which university did you go to?
Okay, so prior to me pursuing my business in photography and videography, I was a student at the University of Papua New Guinea, and I started off in 2020 as a Science Foundation year student. I did that for a year, and when it came to the end of the year, I was really struggling to decide what I wanted to do with my, career pathway after that, because I had friends in, second, third, fourth year who had made their choice, and they sort of had a clear direction of what they wanted to do, whether it was physics, chemistry, geology, there was medicine even, and I was like, what am I going to do? Because prior to coming to uni, I actually wanted to be a pilot, but obviously that didn't work out. And I came to uni, did SFY, and I had to make a choice at the end of the year, and I put down medicine as my first choice. So that was at the end of 2020, and we came to 2021, and I got the confirmation email that I had been accepted to study medicine at Tarama campus, UPNG. So yeah, I was a medical student for 2 years.
Yo.
So
like what, around third year?
So I left school in third year, yeah. So it's always a very interesting conversation when people ask, what did you do before? And I tell them, I was a medical student. Yeah, so to answer your question, I was a medical student.
That's interesting. Was that, to study medicine, was that like your choice, or was that like, did you feel pressured to get into medicine, or like was it a family expectation, or was that really something you really wanted to pursue?
Well, I guess I've always been very interested in sciences. Like even in high school, I was always very just interested in chemistry, physics, not so much biology, but I really did enjoy all the sciences, and that sort of naturally led into me doing Science Foundation when I went to uni. But the pathway where I wanted to take, that I thought I wanted, and I still do, was that I wanted to be able to help other people. And that has been sort of the family legacy that has been built by my grandfather, my father, and I wanted to emulate that, and I wanted to do it in my own way. So I was thinking, how can I use my interest in sciences, and how can I use my interest of helping people, passion, I would say, and how can I incorporate that into studying something that will actually be beneficial for PNG? So the most logical choice for me was studying medicine. So that's sort of why I put down medicine. And yeah, well, to add on to that, prior to picking SFY, I also did make a choice to study law, because when I was in high school, I was involved in a lot of debating competitions, and I generally enjoyed speaking to people, and I just like making new friends here and there. So I made that choice, but in the grace period, I switched back. I was like, science forever.
Hey, you just like doing hard things, because those are two very challenging, what do you call it? Career paths?
Yeah, like pathways you want to take in life. You want to do like science, you want to do law, like what do you want to do?
I was a physics, chemistry student as well, so grade 11 and 12. Yeah. I didn't like biology, even though it was interesting. Cool. I think the only part about biology was interesting was the digestive system, because it was easy to study. You ate and then you could understand.
One way in, one way out.
Digestive system, when it came to biology, we passed all those tests. Everything else was like, no thanks. But what made you decide to switch? It's not an easy thing to switch, especially coming out of uni, because that's like your parents' responsibility to, they have expectations. They raise you, and they have invested so much in you. Let's take a moment for you to put that headphone back
just
on.
cut the camera.
That's for me to edit out.
Yeah. Or you can actually just still use the same angle on you. Okay, we're back. Sorry, technical difficulties, guys.
Yeah, so basically, why did you just drop out or decide to drop out? And how did your family take it?
This was a very heavy conversation that I had with my dad. Well, it was in the sort of middle or beginning of third year for me, when I was really starting to feel the internal struggle, if you would call it that, of wanting to do something different. And going into medicine, I had the feeling, okay, I'm doing something that's worthwhile, that'll help other people, and that will serve my country just as my family has. And as I said before, that's something I wanted to emulate. But there was just this internal thing in me that was telling me, it was a voice in my head saying, you're missing out on doing so much more that you would feel passionate about by studying medicine. I know it sounds pretty cruel and selfish of me to say, but my thinking and my feeling toward the whole situation was that you shouldn't be there taking up the spot of someone who is way more passionate, way more committed, and way more someone who just wants to be there, wants to do that thing. And that's like you're depriving someone of an opportunity to do that. Especially
if they don't have access to the same resources or opportunities that you may have.
So going through that thought process, I thought that I would much rather have someone who wants to be there, take my spot, and who is way more interested in pursuing that pathway in life. Because the way that I see it, we all have our own individual, unique skill set, unique talents that we can help others with. So for some people, it may be medicine. For other people, it may be art. For other people, it may be, chemistry. They go into food processing or brewing, or you can be an architect or design buildings and spaces for people to work in, for design schools, that sort of thing. So that was my thinking, and I guess that's what sort of comforted me in deciding to leave, was that I know I'm leaving behind a space for someone who really wants to be there and will serve our nation proudly. So that's, sort of how I thought of it when I left. So
how did your parents take it?
I think, that's where we started, and that was that's where we started this question off with. And it was a really sort of heavy conversation that I had, because prior to me leaving, it was at the beginning of what we call doing case write-ups. So when you do case write-ups, you have to go down to the wards and you interact with real patients. So when you're interacting with real patients, you take the history, you ask them, what happened to you, what symptoms have you been experiencing, and you compile everything in sort of like a document that you present at the end of the semester or the end of that unit to actual doctors. And the actual doctors, they're also university staff.
Oh, okay.
So, the pressure is really on. Like, you have to...
So you're full on into it. This is not just the theory, but also the practical aspect of it.
I was going down to the wards. I had already actually taken history from a few patients that were admitted, and it was an experience for me. And as I said before, like, I love talking to people. I love finding out what their story is. So it was... Excuse me.
You're excused.
It was very natural for me to talk to them, but I guess when it came to the more theoretical side of things, that's where sort of I wasn't feeling it. When you're in that flow state and you're feeling something, you just really want to do it. So when it came to that, that was the stage where I stopped sort of going to classes more frequently, and at the same time, I also started engaging in more photography jobs and video jobs. So that sort of pulled me away from school, and I could just feel myself slowly stop going to classes, and I just like slowly started receding like the tide, just going back. And then it came to a point where I wasn't going to class at all, and I told my dad, I just said, Dad, I'm not feeling it. I'm not passionate about it. I know it's something that we thought that I would probably settle into going into medical school in second year, but it just never eventuated. So I just thought to myself, probably better talk to Dad about this. So when I did eventually have a conversation with him, I told him it's not something that I really want to pursue. I've been getting more jobs recently, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm contributing back to the household, helping contribute for my brother's school fees, stuff to do in the house. So I felt confident that it's actually something that I can pursue, and it's not something that's just a hobby. And I'm sure like this is a common sentiment that has been shared amongst a lot of your guests on the podcast, that 20 years ago, we had our parents telling us that you have to go to uni, you have to get a degree, you have to get a good paying job to make it in life. But in today's age, that's just not the case. People can make money online. You can make money from, selling art. You can make money from doing design like how you do. You can take money. German.
Yeah, that's called theft. But anyway, we don't encourage that on this podcast.
Please don't be a criminal.
But
So, like, to me, it just seemed like the path of least resistance. And I felt very confident because I had actually, during the time when I was at medical school, I took a few trips with some of my friends during the breaks, during our 1 week break. So in MedFac, for those that don't know, it's actually a 13-week trimester with a 1 week break in between. So unlike at normal programs at university, you have a semester and then you have like 4 to 6 weeks. We had a 1 week break. So you can imagine why I sort of felt like that was a struggle for me, especially someone who loves being outdoors as well. And I love traveling to new places and meeting new people. And so during those breaks that I did have, I went to, one was in the Highlands. I went with Mr. Jerry Albenial. The legendary Jerry Albenial. We covered something up in the Highlands. And then on another trip, I also went on that trip with Jerry and our good friend Autu of O2 Visuals.
Another legend.
Please
come on my podcast. I need you on my podcast.
We need you, Autu. So
award-winning legend.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry, continue.
So we went out to Hidia Island off Boira, and we were there for a shoot with Tabu.
Oh, okay.
Another legend. Just
legend of the legend, yeah.
Surrounded by all these legends. It's a
they
great
need to sponsor, not just kidding.
Honestly. Yeah, so I took my breaks to go and do those things, and I found it just like, wow, this is such a far cry from being in the space that I was in, that I really wasn't feeling, and being in that space, just having a few days out, I was just like, what if this was like life all the time?
Those what if questions are dangerous.
Yeah.
If you start asking yourself what if, the possibilities are endless.
Exactly. You have to ask the right what if questions though.
Exactly.
Because the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
I know, but what if it is?
Oh my goodness!
See, that's how dangerous that question is.
I see how you turn this around.
I'm serious, yo. It's called reframing. That's in mental health. There's something called reframing, where that's how you deal with negative thinking. So if you're like bombarded when you want to do something, and there's a voice that's telling you not to do it because it could go wrong or you could fail everything. You simply just question it by asking, well, what if it doesn't? Suddenly, you get a jolt inside of you, and that's a topic for another day.
That's another podcast topic.
Of course, yeah.
It might be another series where we just dive into.
Definitely, like, ask the right what if questions. Yeah. Anyways.
So, I mean, we're talking about the what if questions. So
yeah, you ask what if.
It is really like something that just asking, is it happening to me or is it happening for me? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, was my struggle happening to me or was it happening for a reason for me to take another path? And those are sort of the questions, little wisdom questions that were going through my head. I was like,
it's good that you're embracing these questions. A lot of people run from that, because they've invested so much time into like pursuing a career path or, in a relationship that they're too afraid to start over or to try something new, that they let those thoughts keep them.
Yeah. And I guess like also there's a lot of family and societal pressure.
Yeah, it is.
Especially in PNG, where you have your family expecting you to graduate with your degree. And like, especially for me, being in medicine, I know that it's something that any family would be proud of for people like to have their son, their daughter, whoever in medicine. And they say, oh, our son, our daughter is in medical school and he's going to become a doctor. So you can imagine that's sort of the hard thing when your parents have to hear you say, I don't want to do medicine.
Yeah, honestly.
So that's pretty much what opened up my eyes to pursuing this as a full-time thing. And I had already built up sort of a network with friends and people that I met on jobs where it just all, is a snowball.
So everything
effect.
was just starting to align for you, and the decision was kind of just easy to.
Yeah, exactly.
And easy to break it to Dad. That I was like, you know what? Don't worry about me. I'm making good money. Exactly. Either way.
Well, I'm trying to.
We're all on that journey, but that was that.
Yeah.
It was just that transition.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So, when it was coming to the point of leaving, my dad just said, "Okay, son, if this is what you're passionate about, then you can pursue it. But I know that you are capable of doing medicine just as much as you are capable of doing your own business, your own thing. So I think after that point, and after the point where he saw me engaging in a lot more work, he just said, okay,
Yeah.
please.
You're blessed to have a dad like that who's just allowing you to do it. You're a busy guy, so definitely. Like catching you on this podcast had to be like, our calendars had to sync and everything, bro.
Catch my breath to actually have some free time.
That's good. Yeah. And then, so did you leave school and then go into business full time, or what was that like, starting the business that you are running right now?
Right. So I had registered the business. Oh, if we go all the way back, I had started it as a hobby. So 2016, 2017.
Yeah, that's basically all of us.
Yeah.
We're just hobbyists.
And I started on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started on my phone. I had a Samsung S7. It was like the first like proper smartphone that I had with a good camera. And I was like, okay, it's time to cook.
Let's go.
So I started, like, I got inspiration from friends of mine who were also doing like mobile photography. And I just loved how aesthetic, shout out to Aesthetic PNG.
I was sound engineer for today.
Sound engineer for today.
Man, you all gotta start,
we're gonna cut the camera to him later.
No, just kidding.
So yeah, I just I loved how aesthetic his feed looked, and I sort of drew inspiration from that, and I started doing my own thing. So on my original Instagram account, if you do follow me there, you go all the way to the bottom, you'll notice that I had sort of a feed aesthetic going on. It was like a black and white, and then like a tropical blue, brownish, greenish thing going on. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to like the vibe of this. And that was what my hobby was. Fast forward to, I think, 2018, I had got a job at Theatist. So that was my one and only
Again,
job.
The alignment, that's where every photographer gets their stuff from, Theatist.
Exactly. So I had got my job in 2018 during the back to school period at the end of the year, beginning of the year. And
this was after leaving uni?
No. This was still during school. I Sorry, I just completed grade 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
this is way back.
This is a few years ago, yeah. So I had finished there, and I was doing part-time at Theatist, and I was working in the tech section. Okay. So in the tech section, I got to play with all the cameras. I mean, obviously, do work. I had to clean the glass, and, write down codes for people who wanted to come and get products. And that was like my first
exposure to like the tech side.
And that was, since then, that has been my only full-time job.
Lucky
I was actually part-time, so...
It's not even a full-time.
Yeah, I was part-time.
Not even a full-time student, and not even a full-time job, mate.
I just go from
You're just
one
meant
thing
to be
to another.
You're just meant to be a full-time business owner.
Yeah, so, but it was pretty great experience. Receiving your first paycheck is a wonderful experience for anyone getting their first job, and I think it's very special to understand how much hard work it takes to build something. Like if you're just building yourself with your first job, you're gaining new skills and experience. It goes down on what you've done, and it's great for your personal development. So personally, for my development, it was great for doing all my camera work. I got to hold the cameras that like everyone goes in and just drools over and just wants to like test them out.
True.
And I'm sure like a lot of our creative guys who are in photography, video, doing drones and stuff, they just want to play with all this gear there. Unfortunately for me, I had the opportunity to do that.
The envy.
Honestly, I was like, that's so cool. And I also, my family has a good relationship with the Pini family. So Jason Pini, who is the purchasing manager, I believe, is his current position at Theatist. He's also the contest director for the Surfing Association of PNG, which my dad is the president of. So we had a good family relationship, and he had a camera of his own, which he wasn't using frequently. And it was like the top of the line Canon 1DX.
Again, it's the alignment for me. It's
know,
like how everything is just aligning for you.
So he had that camera, and he wasn't using it. So he ended up lending it to me with a small pancake 40mm lens. And I got to use that camera for about 2 months. So I was just going wild with that camera, coming from a phone and coming from the little power zoom Canon cameras that my dad used to buy when he'd travel overseas and come back. And going to something as like professional as the 1DX. I mean, like people, like if you don't know what the Canon 1DX is, it is like the top of the line Canon camera.
I'm pretending. Oof, nice.
It's the top of the line Canon camera that they use at the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
So this is the big body, it's sort of squarish looking that they used to take photos of at the Olympics. And at the time, it was the first generation one. They're out with the third generation now. But like for its capability, for what you could do with it, like the colors were amazing. The image quality coming out of the lens is just so good. And it had a few video features as well. So I had sort of tested the waters there. Tested the waters. Shout out to Avatar.
Oh,
you guys have been watching.
There we go.
Southern Water Tribe.
Yeah. I think that's basically just describing, like, I think that's for a lot of us creatives, the early days was just us really playing around with it. I think it starts to become a profession when we see the value of it in the market, and we can actually make money and a living off of that. And then everything becomes,
We're talking about seeing the value. So I guess that'll be one of the things that we talk about. A segue into what it's like being a photographer and videographer or creative in Papua New Guinea. It's seeing value in your work and getting clients to see the same value in your work and placing a value on that.
So when did you register your business, like officially, and then become like full-time?
All right. So when did I register the business? I registered the business at the end of 2020. So by registering, I mean I registered with IPA. And between that and 2021, I was doing sort of random gigs here and there. But it was at the end of 2021, so a full year, until I actually got my tax certificate. So guys, make sure you get your tax certificate when you register your business. But I had to get it because I started doing work for a corporate company. And obviously with corporates, they require you to have a tax identification number or TIN. So
I get that because I did the same thing as well, because I was kind of informal. So after I left Digicel, they didn't mind. The clients I was working with didn't mind, but until I landed like a really good big corporate client, that forced me to do everything. Get the IPA certificate, the TIN, and open an official business bank account.
Yeah, like for businesses, especially small like SMEs, MSMEs here in PNG, it's important to have all those documents in place and all your permits, I'd say, or certificates of business, doing business, so that if you go to bigger corporates, you can easily just fill in the vendor form and you become a vendor for that company, which is really good and really great for people like us.
Yeah.
Because it means...
And corporate clients are the kind of the best clients as well, because that's the security of it. They already have a system in place and everything, so you really don't have to worry about chasing invoices and everything, because they have a system for it all.
And sort of working with corporates as well forces you to have your taxation in order. So
you're basically becoming like a serious, that's when the transition happens, when you're a serious business person.
So like tax, that's like a whole nother episode that we'll get.
That's what Vanessa is for.
Vanessa, we're going to get Vanessa on the podcast. Or has she already done the podcast?
She already did one. She has to do, but she's going to be a regular, so
So she's going to come back and teach all of us how to do our taxes properly.
Or you can sign up for her courses.
Exactly. Available on
Relay. That's the one.
Yeah. Really good, guys. It's very important to invest in your financial education, especially as a young business or a startup, or, even if you've been operating for a long time, but you haven't really thought about your finances as well. Because you need to have a system in place where when a client sends a request for a job, you can easily quote them for it and convert that to an invoice, and that invoice goes into your system. And basically at the end of the year, you can go back and look at, I've done this many invoices, I've invoiced this many jobs, and this is how much work I've done. So
at the end of the day, a business, one of the main purposes of running a business is to make profit.
Yeah, definitely.
Apart from the passion and all the fun stuff that we get to do.
That's a great point.
Because the health of a business is whether you're making a profit or not.
Yeah, and then like having cash flow coming into the business, because you can be making profit, but if you're not making profit regularly, as in your cash flow is down, then your business is struggling.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's another point about so financial education, taxation, and then coming back to the deadlines with clients. Sometimes you need to manage expectations. So managing expectations, like when you submit your invoices, is there a payment period where you expect to be paid in within 14 days or within 30 days? And like that's just, it's managing those expectations with your clients as well. That's important. And you should also take that in as a skill as well. That's a skill for any business, to manage client expectations. And especially for us creatives, when it comes back to what we're creating is a vision that we have had, having had discussions with our clients and sort of incorporating what they want with the vision that we have and working together to execute that and delivering on that expectation. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine because, I mean, not fine. I'm like, sorry, forgive me. I sound
It's
like
not fine.
I'm like talking down on it. Like, that's fine. No, I mean, that's great because sometimes people don't get that communication skills, customer experience, and like customer satisfaction, interacting with the customer. Those are skills in itself, but they're important skills that separate you from your competition, because there are so many people who are very talented, but they're not easy to work with. And if you're someone who's easy to work with and talented, man, it's going to be easy for you to get a job. Yeah.
You're going to go a long way.
Yeah. But I think it was easy for you because you're an extrovert person and you like to be around people. So I think communication comes naturally to you.
And yet my name is Shy. It doesn't make sense.
Mate.
But yeah.
That's your parents' fault.
Well, not pointing any fingers. Yeah, but like what we're talking about customer experience and customer care, I feel is something that needs to be worked on in PNG.
Especially in the SME space.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but even in the bigger corporate space, like bigger companies as well. I do notice that I go to some places and the customer experience sort of just puts me off going there.
Yeah.
Like if you ever travel overseas and you go to places where, you know, they have to, they're in malls and people literally come out of the shop just to grab your attention to come into the shop. And then the customer experience that they give you is just like top class. And it just shows you like, wow, you go back to PNG, you struggle to find people that are that bothered. I mean, there are certainly places that you go shopping in, Moresby or other centers in PNG, and you have a great customer experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that draws people back to those places.
Yeah.
And like in terms of us having a good customer relationship with our clients, that continuously draws them back to us to work with us again. Even if the product that you produced wasn't up to the expectation or the quality that you thought it would be, but it's just because you're such a joy to work with and people love talking, communicating with you, that they want to come back. Yeah. And I think that's very important.
Exactly.
Okay, well, what were we talking about? Customer experience.
No, I get what you're saying. We're recording, right? Yeah. I get what you're saying, because one time I went to a shop and there's two places that I usually shop. I don't want to name names, but there's two places that I go shopping, and one has a cashier who scans your item, and then there's another one who bags your items, and you bring a bag, they do it. There's another shop, it's equally as big, but they only have a cashier, and you have to bag. If you bring your own bag, you bag it yourself. So one time I went to the other shop that they bag my groceries for me. And then I told them, like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate that you guys are bagging my food for me, and I don't have to do it. I go to the other shop and they don't do it, and it's really annoying because sometimes they just stand around do nothing when they could be packing my food. And the cashier was like, yeah, we don't like to do it, and so like, no, you should continue. It makes me want to come and shop here. So like that in terms of customer experience, like I get where you're coming from, and it really changes, because I enjoy shopping at that shop because they have that little bit of extra service and do something that I don't want to do, as opposed to the other shop that just looks at me when I'm putting my own food in and trying to pay for everything at the same time.
It's just like a friend watching you struggle and laughing at you.
Oh, mate. It's always annoying. But anyway, it is what it is.
It's out of love. It's out of love.
Really though? Is it though?
Not at the shop, but if your friend does it.
No, but see, like these are like little things that can separate you from the competition and help you to stand out. And like you were talking about how you traveled and your experiences and your full-time gig. How has that like been? How did you start to get jobs that allowed you to travel and see other parts of the world?
Yeah, well, my travel for work really started here in PNG. As I said earlier, in 2021, when I was in second year uni, I traveled out with Jerry, Mr. Jerry Albeniol, for the trip up in the Highlands. And that was really eye-opening for me because that was the first time that I'd ever visited the Highlands. And the weather was amazing, the food was amazing. Everything about it was just amazing. I was like, man, this place is beautiful. And the places that you go and see, it literally looks like it's from elsewhere in the world. I remember one time we were going to Enga. We're going to Enga and we're going down the valley from Western Highlands along the highway. And there was a drone video that I took. And it was going over the road, going into the valley. And it just looked like it was somewhere out of like Europe or something, with these massive mountains on the side. And you just have this river and this road running straight down the middle of the valley. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So that was my first time in the Highlands. And eventually I started getting gigs to travel elsewhere around PNG. So places that I visited included East New Britain, New Ireland, Bougainville, Milne Bay. Got to go to Sundown. Got to go to West, so that's West Sepik. Got to go to East Sepik as well. Medang, Morobe, all these places. And that was just because of my camera. And so a lot of these gigs I got through the various platforms which I market the business and also on my website as well. And when it came to the biggest gig that I ever did, it was actually through LinkedIn. So a lot of people use LinkedIn as a place for like professional showcasing of your skill set or what you do in your space. And I use it to market my businesses, my services, and also my, I guess you could say, professional showcase of me as a person working in my business. And it was noticed by a team out of Bali.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I got noticed by a film studio out in Bali, and they contacted me regarding a project here in PNG. And it's really great because these guys work in a whole lot of different countries. They're sort of like a regional, global studio that work with NGOs.
Oh, okay.
And these NGOs operate in all these different countries. So these guys produce the content for these NGOs. And they operate in all manner of different countries, like in Asia especially. So because they're based in Indonesia, they operate obviously in Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, all these places. And they had a project here with an NGO that was operating here in PNG. And they contacted me. And they asked, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I do filmmaking, photography. Would you be able to do this documentary? And we got talking, the ball rolling, and gave him a brief of all my gear and what I do, how long I've been doing this. And I eventually happened to secure the job. I was like, oh, man, that's so cool. Like, and it was the biggest job that I ever got. So we had the director, his name's Will. He flew all the way from Bali, all the way here to Moresby. And we met up with him. I did that job with another mate of mine, Boron Renagi. So 20-second films. Shout out to him. Another shout out. Sorry, Chen.
It's all good. It's all good. That's what the podcast is for.
All the fellow creatives just uplifting each other.
This is our podcast, so every creative gets a shout out.
Yeah. So basically, him and I did that documentary, and it was a documentary for climate change. And we worked with this NGO, and we got to travel to 3 different provinces. So the first one was New Ireland, and then we came back to Milne Bay, and then the third one was Enga. And the great thing about New Ireland, which was probably my favorite destination that we visited for that documentary, was that it was really chill, and we got to stay at Noosa Island Retreat, which is, if you guys don't know where Noosa Island Retreat, if you're ever visiting Caving and you want to go for like great time. It's like an island eco resort retreat type thing where you have incredible food. We got to go surfing as well, visit all these different islands as part of the documentary. And I just had the time of my life with my mates when we all became really good friends. And sort of throughout that journey for that project, we got to make good friends and we got to create a 30-minute long documentary out of that trip. And yeah, that all came about just because of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So guys, LinkedIn is important.
Yeah. I think a lot of creatives, I mean, for me, I'm starting to get back into LinkedIn. And but I used to shy away from it because like it's not. I didn't see it as a place for creatives to really thrive in. I think a lot of us opt for Facebook and Instagram, but now I think we're all moving to LinkedIn. It's either that or you guys have already been on LinkedIn and I'm just catching up. But I mean, like the podcast does really well on LinkedIn, but it's good to be like to put your work out in an environment where it's just filled with professionals and then people are just so single-mindedly focused on just building the professional network.
Yeah, I really think that LinkedIn is the place for that. You go to Facebook, but Facebook is just filled with...
It's kind of like for everybody.
Yeah.
Like it's the general audience.
And especially when you post controversial things there, be prepared to have a whole storm brew up about whatever you posted.
Especially like LinkedIn has come a long way. I think now everybody's really... Like it's really good. Like every person on LinkedIn is sharing something that's of value, I think. Like whenever I scroll on LinkedIn, it's someone giving good advice, or even if when they're talking about the profession, it's very insightful.
Yeah.
And it's a really great place to be. But speaking of like traveling and your experiences, you've recently gone to travel to a very, very exotic destination. You've been to Dubai. What was that like?
I have indeed.
Man, is that like one thing on your bucket list, or
it wasn't even on my bucket list to begin with.
How did that?
It was just a shock announcement to me. So I got and funny story is that I actually got this job because of that other job through the guys in Bali.
Oh, okay.
So I got.
You never know how things come back to you.
Sort of things just sort of work their way in.
It's the alignment for me, mate.
Everything just fell into place. So the partners of the NGO that I worked with, they needed like media coverage done of their trip to Dubai and what they were doing there. And it was to do with climate change. It was for the COP28, so Conference of Parties. It's the United Nations Convention for Climate Change. And they needed someone to cover what they were doing, the important events, both photography and video. And they couldn't afford to bring all the media over.
Their media team.
Yeah, their own media team. When I say that, they actually only had one guy who was coordinating all of their social media posts and that. So when we were doing the job, or when they requested for that, we basically had an engagement where we worked with the marketing coordinator and we supplied all the material to them, and they put the words with the visual aspect of everything, and they released the content as we were there. And we did that for about 3 weeks.
So you were in Dubai for 3 weeks?
I was in Dubai for 3 weeks.
What a dream.
Shukran, Habibi. Yeah. So it was an incredible place, and I think it was a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I would have been overwhelmed because like I've been to, I think the biggest city I've visited is Sydney, but that's a tiny city compared to like New York.
Yeah.
And like Dubai is even bigger. Like what was it? I mean, how different is it?
Everything was different. To begin with, they drive on the opposite side of the road. So when I was crossing the road, I had to look the other way. So here you look right and then you look left and you look right again. There's you look left, right, and then left again.
Funny thing is Vanuatu does that as well. When I went to Vanuatu, they also drive on the other side of the road. So it's
confusing.
Mate, the good thing is like for them, it's like the traffic is not bad. So it doesn't matter if a car, the drivers are responsible, but like, mate.
When you go to a place like Dubai with that many cars, that many people. Yeah, and just
what's the general vibe there like?
I'd say it's very like open to all sorts of different people, because you have such a diverse range of people working in Dubai. 80% of the people there are not native to the United Arab Emirates.
Wow.
So they're not people of Emirati descent. The immigrant workers, a lot of them are from the Central Asian region. You also had people from Asia there as well. And I noticed that they're like very welcoming and very open to people, you know, coming from all walks of life. It's not like you're visiting someplace and they look at you and like, oh, where's this guy from? So yeah, we found it very easy to move around, and a lot of the people there were very welcoming and open to, like, if you had questions to ask them, they would answer you. And like I said, the customer service, we were talking about customer service earlier. The customer service there was like second to
It just
none.
made you feel very welcome, eh?
I was like, can I buy some more stuff? Tap the card. Sorry, no money. No, just keep tapping it.
What's the currency like? What's the currency?
The currency, so it's the local currency is called dirham.
Yep.
And it's a 1-to-1 with Papua New Guinea.
Oh.
Yeah, so anything that was in Dubai that was worth their local currency, so it was the exact same price as you would get it here.
Mate.
So equivalent.
That's it. I'm going there. Like, why?
And electronics, like for us creatives, like, guys, photography gear, videography gear is so much cheaper in Dubai. Because they don't pay any tax.
What?
They don't pay any your GST, I think it is, or their duties or something. They don't pay those taxes, so they can sell things for a lower price. So it was quite advantageous for us to do all that
That's
shopping.
a flex right there. Like, we don't need taxes.
Exactly.
We're well off.
Yeah, so because the majority of their financial, I guess, resource isn't, despite common, you know, misconception, is that it's out of oil and gas and all that, which it actually isn't. That only makes up about 10% of their revenue. 80% of their revenue is actually from financial services and other businesses operating in Dubai. Because it's very central to both, like, Asia, Europe.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle, so it makes everything easy.
They have just really good leaders who understand how to make the most of the money that the country is generating.
It's really funny because if you go to Dubai and you see all the infrastructure, all the high-rise buildings, the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, is there, and you go and see it and you just think, 40 years ago, this was all just flat desert.
It was a desert.
Those guys don't have any resources. They don't have anything, yet they built a powerhouse in the region out of nothing.
Yeah.
And like, I see that as being very resourceful.
Yeah.
They can basically turn water into wine.
Mate, they turned the desert into a playground. So it sounds like such a great experience, and like you've been there and then you coming back to PNG, and like just like the entire culture and the difference of how it's been. What were your responsibilities in Dubai? Like what kind of, like, you take photos and videos, but what else were you responsible for?
So when we were there for, we were supposed to be 21 days, but we had some delays leaving here. So we were only there for 17 days. But immediately when we flew in, we sort of traveled ahead of the rest of the team. And we flew in, we got to our hotel, and we had to go to the convention center. It's actually a city of its own. It's called Expo City.
Wow.
So you catch a tram there, and it's about a 30-minute
My
train
imagination is trying to catch up.
Yeah.
To your
I'm sorry,
descriptions.
your imagination would be overloaded by the time I finished. But you get on the train, it's about a 30-minute train ride, and when we got there to the Expo City, we spent probably almost 2 hours trying to get our passes. So each person that attended, you have a pass of your own to enter the facility, and it's very heavily guarded. As you can imagine, if world leaders,
because world leaders are there
coming to that Expo City. I mean, I saw world leaders like Emmanuel Macron and all these guys. Like, hey man, I'm taking photos of these people. So I always
probably feel like a drop in the ocean, you know.
It really was. I was like literally like 1 meter away from the French president. So it was quite an experience being that close to world leaders who have say in all these global policies and whatnot. But basically, our responsibility while we were there was we were following around the key dignitaries and basically people who were going and attending a lot of the high-level meetings. and just capturing what was happening there, making highlight videos of the days, basically PNG's meetings and involvement and what they've achieved and what they have accomplished while they were there. So handing all of that content over to the agency that we were working with, and basically just doing that for the entire 17 days. And we only got about, I'd say, 1.5 days of free rest time.
Wow.
So the entire time we were there, we were just basically...
It was work.
It was work. It was traveling back and forth. And because of the sheer number of people that showed up for COP28, there was 100,000 people that attended. So you can imagine the trains in the evening were just absolutely packed. So if we wanted to do anything, we'd have to leave Expo City, go back to the hotel, and by that time it was probably already 7 o'clock at night. And
what was the time difference?
The time difference is about 6 hours. So it took us...
Are they ahead or behind us?
6 hours behind. So when it's 2 o'clock here in Port Moresby, it's 7, 8 o'clock there in Dubai. So I'd wake up in the morning, it'll already be afternoon here. I'd contact the family, hi guys, morning, and they'd be like, oh, it's already afternoon here.
What's the difference? What am I trying to say? Like, I'm trying to ask about like client expectation. Like working with international clients, there is a certain level of expectations. What are some of the expectations or like some of the work ethic that you had to adopt, or like the professional, how do you carry yourself? Like, what are some of the things that you had to do to be able to handle a job like that, or to work with international clients like that?
Okay, so we're talking about international clients. I'm actually on a shoot right now with an international client, and it really depends on the industry and the client that you have. Particularly with NGOs, I don't think they're really too bothered, so long as you convey the message across and you are able to deliver your part of the job on time. So the job that I got with the guys out of Bali here in PNG for the 3 provinces and the climate change documentary, we were purely doing the production aspect, so we were filming only. So basically the expectation, we had a whole agreement in place where after each shoot day, you back up the footage. So we have dinner, everything, we're sitting around the table, and we dump all the cards onto the one hard drive. And then you duplicate that one hard drive on another hard drive. And these 2 hard drives can't be in the same place. Ooh. So one hard drive has to stayed with the director, and then the other hard drive stayed with us. So in case of anything, we always had a backup. So in the filming aspect of things, that's sort of like the expectations that we can't lose any footage. We have to have double backups. And I'm sure like a lot of guys know that when you're working on very important shoots, like it's really good to make a double backup of everything.
I have 5 hard drives, so I can relate. And I need to buy more hard drives.
Wait until you hear the amount of hard drives.
And I'm a designer, and I have 5, 6, and counting hard drives because I need to back up everything that I have.
Yeah, it's important. You don't want to lose anything, and that's the expectation. But and like I said, it's different for every industry. The current shoot that I'm doing, it's for it's in the hospitality industry, and it's they are so stringent. Like we have live feedback. So when we shoot, we send the images off, and those images have to be critiqued. So if there's anything that we need to change, then we change it on the spot. And it's you can understand why. I'm sure you have this experience too, that if you go with someone that they can do the job for a lower price, but if the job stuffs up, then you have to come back again, and then it just ends up costing the client even more money. So those sort of expectations are the expectations that, like, especially big brands internationally have, that you have to do it this way and this way. And if you don't do it this way, then we're going to have to come back and reshoot, and that's going to cost more money. And it becomes more frustrating.
Yeah.
The more that...
To the client.
Yeah. To the client. I mean, even to us as producers as well, because it's more time out of our schedule to have to go back again. Yeah. And when payment processes become very long and drawn out, it can be very hard to sort of adjust when it comes to your budgeting. Like if you have a system in place where you're doing revisions or reshoots, and it's a whole thing. So
yeah. I understand how everything like that works. And I mean, these are some of the things that when you go into and you try to start like a creative business, you really don't think about. And then once you start getting into the thick of everything, it starts becoming, I think it becomes kind of the main thing that you have to focus on, like the business aspect and client relationships and work ethic, managing your time. Like, I often struggle to take time for myself to do creative things. Like, it becomes something that I get really frustrated. Like, no, I'm not exploring my creativity. I'm working, and trying to find like that balance is interesting.
I really relate to that because I just said to myself the other day, and I told my girlfriend as well, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm doing more like pre-production, nothing to do with creative. I feel like I'm doing everything to do with planning and budgeting everything and making sure everything's good before we even start shooting. And that's when you're a business where you're sort of handling all of those things yourself, it can become very taxing and you feel like you sort of jump into a creative rut.
Yeah.
And especially when you see a lot of your friends who are exploring their creativity and are able to share their work that they've been working on, it sort of leaves a hole in your heart. I'm like, I wish I was doing more creative stuff. I want to do more creative stuff. And it becomes a thing. So like recently I've just sort of been focusing on, okay, if I can get the client project out of the way, then I need to do this personal passion project.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been.
I completely agree. I've run into that problem so many times, and for me, one of my like New Year's resolution is to say no as often as possible, and to understand like the real valuable thing is time, and really not money and everything, because with time you have that freedom to explore your creative outlet. And when you started off as a hobbyist, you had all the time in the world, so you could do all these crazy things. But now when you start getting into the thick and thin of like the whole running the business thing, like everything has to be systemized and everything. It's a good challenge.
It's sort of like a love triangle with your business.
Interesting.
And with your if you have all the time in the world, you don't have any money.
Yeah.
If you're trying to chase after making profit, making money for the business, and you don't have any time to do anything else.
I think it's a delicate balance, but it's a learning process, and I'm glad you're on that journey as well, because I'm on that journey as well. We're trying to find, just to structure everything in a way, not just, and sometimes like I'm trying to learn also to delegate, and like I can't do everything on my own. I'm so used to that. Like you talked about like how the Bali people, you were just doing like shooting, and I recently did a project that has a team that actually has a pipeline, and I'm so used to doing those kind of projects on my own from start to finish. It's an animation project, and I went in with the knowledge that I was going to start with storyboarding, drafting everything, sound design, and then animating, sound design, compositing, editing. And then we had a face-to-face like catch up, and then I asked, so like, what do I need to do? Do I need to do this? And say, no, we have a post-production team who's going to do that. You're just going to be focusing on just animating. And I kind of stopped for a moment. I was like, whoa, wait, sorry, I'm sorry. This is new for me because I'm so used to doing everything. And to be part of a team that you can just segment them, like I felt, for me, like that felt like a weight off. Like, it's like, oh, good, I can just focus on this thing, get it as good as I can get it, and then I don't have to worry about everything else. Because you're a one-man production army as well.
Well, sometimes. Actually, most of the time these days, I'm working with other people. So it's. I remember we had this conversation actually one time. We were talking about delegating to trustworthy people, or people you feel that sort of match your brand, your style of work, and that's important.
I think it's a good signal to start growing. Yeah. It's like I take it as a signal that the business is growing and it's becoming bigger than you, that you can't, you're at a point where you're not enough. Like you need other people.
You're never enough.
That's why you grow, mate. That's how you
stop
grow.
Laughing. Hey, Judah, stop laughing. The guys off camera are laughing.
Should I keep this or should I edit this out? But yeah, I mean, it's good that we're experiencing this kind of things. And I think for my personal like enjoyment from this podcast is that I've been interviewing a lot of people who I know are just early in their journeys. And the joy is looking back 5, 10, 20 years where you've been. And then we get to watch this footage and kind of cringe a little bit because of where we are. But it's just going to be interesting to see the growth and that trajectory and that journey.
Point.
So we've talked about like a lot of good things, and I think before we get onto like a 2-hour episode, I think we should wrap up. But like, what are some important lessons or advice that you would give to other people who are in the same industry as you or pursuing a career like you, or thinking about dropping out of uni to pursue something that they're passionate about?
Okay, my first piece of advice is don't drop out of uni unless you have a plan in place on what you're going to do after, because I guess the real power in what you have if you start a business afterwards is that if that doesn't work out, you still have something to fall back on. So it's important still to pursue your education, and if you don't have a backup plan, just finish your degree, finish your diploma, certificate, whatever it is, so that you can always fall back on that. I know I want to talk because I didn't do that, but I sort of had a plan in place for what I was going to do after. And a lot of, if you scroll on social media, and a lot of advice that's given by financial mentors is that your income, be it your job or your business, is your biggest investment building tool. So don't just give up your job or your education just because you think it's going to work out. You have to sort of test the waters first. And once you have sort of a solid plan in place of how you're going to go about it, then you can really pursue it when you see that things are snowballing, which is sort of how I felt when I left uni. Because like I said before, I was already doing it as part-time and I was sharing my work just as a hobby. But when I started getting hired more, that was when I felt confident to break away. My second piece of advice is that you need to understand that practice really makes perfect. When you put, I can't remember what book it is exactly. Maybe Chan, you'd know, but you put 10,000 hours into something, you become a master at it, or is it 100,000?
It takes 10,000 hours 10, to master something.
Yeah. So practice, especially in the creative space. For us in design, photography, videography, it becomes really important. Art, all these things that the more you practice, the better you become.
Yeah.
And
trends always change, and gear is always upgraded and updated as well.
Yeah, and you get to understand more about your line of work the more you do it. If you don't practice and you don't sort of take an active interest in what you're doing, constantly educating yourself, you sort of fall behind. So you practice both doing your craft and investing into yourself as well. So I guess that would be my third piece of advice, is investing into yourself. Mm-hmm. It's never an expense when you invest into education that aids how you conduct your business. So investing in yourself in financial education in your creative aspect of things, education in business, education in the way that you deal with clients is very important. For me, I've invested in courses and stuff like that help me to not only get better at the creative side, but also get better at the business side, because the business aspect is equally as important as the creative aspect.
I think it's more important.
It is. Yeah. If it is your only source of income, it's so important.
Because if you can get to a place where the business is taking care of yourself, you have the freedom to be more creative.
Exactly. And that builds on a point where you finding a good team. So when you get to a point where you feel like you're just managing too many things, I think it's important to build a good team around you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to employ those people full time, but if you can get them on board on your project at the most critical stage where you need them, and you're confident in their capability of executing whatever scope it is that you provide for them, then you should go for it, because you can only make better work. And when you have a bigger team, you can charge more.
There you go.
It sort of shows the value behind your work, in that you're working with a lot of people and you're showing the client that it actually takes a village to create something. You can do things as a one-man band until you start becoming too successful for your own good.
Yeah. I prefer to say you outgrow it.
Yeah.
You get a bit too big to fit into that.
Sorry, not too successful for your own good, but
No.
that's what I tried to.
That's cool, though. You know,
you
deserve your flowers, mate.
You don't want to
celebrate your success.
Exactly.
It's your fault you're successful.
You don't want to be suffering from success.
Yeah, that's called arrogance. Stay humble, though.
Don't suffer from your own success. It's great working with other people, and you lift each other up.
Yeah.
You get experience, and you have a great time working. Like I did a wedding shoot with a couple of my mates last year, and there were 7 of us shooting for that project.
That must be a huge wedding.
Logistically, it was, I wouldn't say it was a nightmare, but it was much bigger than just operating with 2 guys. And it was a lot more coordination. So for that project, I really took on more of a director role rather than shooting. And I sort of just coordinated everything.
Yeah.
But like I said, building a good team is important. And I guess finally, my last piece of advice is recognizing the value in your own work.
Yeah.
Recognizing the value in your own work and being able to communicate that value to your clients. I think I saw this in one of your previous podcasts that I watched. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was with Travis
Ellison, Son of Ashes.
Yes, Son of Ashes. Oh my God, edit that out.
Hi, Trevor.
Hi, Trevor. Because I made the same mistake the other day. Okay, let me just start that point again. So my final piece of advice is that you should really understand the value in what you do and the value that it brings to your clients. Because if you're able to recognize the value in what you do and you can communicate that with your clients and you place a value on it, as you said with Travis on your previous podcast, that placing, we as creatives often struggle to recognize or place a value on the work that we do. So if you're able to value your work and you're able to recognize that the benefits or the outcomes of whatever you provide to your client and how much it's bringing in for them, basically the delta, right?
Yep.
The delta is how much has this product that I've provided for my client changed their business.
Yep.
And if you can put a number on that, say you did a project and it brought in your client 100,000 kina, then how much is your work worth to them? Because without your piece of work, they wouldn't have brought in that much money. And it comes back to you should price on value.
Exactly.
You shouldn't price on time.
Exactly.
Because if you can do something in half the time and produce double the value for your client, then it's worth 2 times as much.
Exactly.
So yeah, I guess that's all the advice that
I'm proud of you because you cracked the code.
Yeah. Well,
it's something called value-based pricing.
Yeah.
But that's, you have to. That's I won't add on to that because you explained it really well. But basically is that you basically think of the clients and their needs. And then you say, how can I use my talent, my skills to get this particular outcome for my client? And then you put a number on that. And you say, I will do this for this because it will bring this kind of value. So,
and communicating and telling them it's
exactly.
going to bring you this.
All of those are skills, like communication skills and everything. And man, any more? This is just nuggets. I'm just going to resign from the podcast. You can just host and we'll have Shay's Corner.
So we'll take a little breaks in between episodes. I'll come to you guys with some of my wisdom that I've collected from various people throughout my journey in this space.
But it's good. Like I'm very impressed that as someone as young as you're already gaining so much wisdom and you are navigating yourself very, very well. It's a testament to how your parents raised you as well. And just your network and your environment. So kudos on you. I'm very excited to see what's next for you. And I think that's all the time that we have on today's episode. Thank you so much, Cheyenne from Cheyes Visuals. From Cheyes Visuals for being on the show today. Thank you for your time. You're a very busy person, and I really appreciate it. And that's all the time that we have for this episode. Thank you so much to everybody out there who has been following and supporting the podcast. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Castbox. We're also on social media on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and what's the last one that we're on? LinkedIn, where it's all. Thank you so much also to the sponsors who made all these things possible. Smart Hills Corporate Solutions, thank you so much for your continuous support of this podcast. You can find out more information about them at their website at www.smarthills.com.pg. Thank you so much also to my crew for today for tolerating me every episode and getting and putting all this production together. And yeah, with that, to all my fellow creatives, embrace your weird, dream big, and remember all things are possible to those who believe. I'm Shawk23, Aparua.